Previously on the 2D Metroid Retrospective.
Hey there!
Ah!
Now is Super Metroid.
You the baby Metroid?
No?
Then who the hell are you? What is this? So, Metroid is gone and left me the bane of my existence. I feel kind of bad. I locked him out of my room and didn't give him a chance to kill me. It's only fair.
Metroid Fusion, the most recent 2D Metroid title that released almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, after this game, the main 2D series took a back pedal and the 3D series took main stage, having multiple games before the next 2D entry, which so happens to release this year.
Metroid Fusion was released for the Game Boy Advance on November 18, 2002, and weirdly, it was released in February 2003 in Japan. It was met with a lot of positive reviews, calling it the reason to pick up a GBA, although it was met with criticism due to the game's more linear progression, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, so this game is typically known as the weirder game in the series, since it ditches the whole open world reputation the series has had this far. But is that a bad thing?
No, far from it. I feel it adds to the overall narrative that the game has, since this game puts a major focus on story.
So let's get into the story, shall we?
The story starts off back on SR-388, the setting for Metroid 2. Samus is assisting a research team and, whoops! Samus is infected by a familiar-looking parasite.
Oh, hey, remember these? Yeah, the X are here, the whole reason for Metroid existing. Who knew making a species extinct would backfire in any way?
If you forgot what the X are you even a Nintendo fan at all? X is a parasite that kills and clones their victims, sometimes appearing more grotesque than the creature it copied. There, you got it now? After that whole shebang, Samus goes straight back to work, completely disregarding the fact that she just absorbed a dangerous parasite. And then Samus goes unconscious during an escort and crashes.
I told her not to absorb parasites and drive!
Luckily, her ship ejected her before impact. When being checked on by the medical team, they discover that the X has fused her with her power suit and has to surgically remove it. The X had integrated itself into her nervous system, making it nearly impossible to remove it without killing Samus in the process. The doctors figured, hey, if the Metroids are the natural predator of the X, why don't we just use that? This kills the X in Samus' body, but also fuses her with the Metroid DNA, giving her the ability to absorb the X without repercussion. Unfortunately, this also means Samus is very vulnerable in the cold, harming her at the touch. The game takes place on a station named the BSL station, with Samus investigating an explosion that occurred within it. This acts like a research station, having different sections of it based on environments to house creatures. And since the X have gone out of control, all the animals and creatures are replaced by clones made by the X. Speaking of the X, there's a new Samus in town. This is the SAS, a clone of your Super Metroid self. This is the main antagonist of the game, your main goal being to kill it. But it has your Ice Beam too, so you're very vulnerable to them now that you're part Metroid.
Yeah, this game focuses a lot more on story, since none of the other game's openings took up 4 paragraphs.
This was the first Metroid game on the GBA, so they had to figure out how to convey Super Metroid's controls into the GBA's control scheme. And they did a phenomenal job. This is by far the best controlling game in the series, using your left bumper to aim diagonally and the right to switch on your missiles. Speaking of the missiles, the power-ups. I mean, the power-ups are okay. Instead of having your super missiles and ice beam separate, they're integrated into your regular missiles. This is a cool change, but I feel like it was kind of unneeded. Did you really have to combine them? I get that it kind of makes sense, the beam stacks, so why shouldn't the missiles? Well, because if the player doesn't want to freeze the enemy, they have no option. Of course, you can disable it in your suit menu, but not every player is going to know that. Samus also takes a lot more damage in this game, making it harder to tank hits like in the previous games.
See, this game is your standard Metroid with a few changes, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but players thought otherwise.
So throughout the game, you have a computer guiding you through the station, having you take care of a problem in one area and then move on to the next. Samus labels it Adam, after a commanding officer she worked under before. Critics were very critical on this aspect, feeling as if it wasn't as explorable as Super. But this game uses that to its advantage. After one of the missions, while Samus is in the elevator, the SAS shuts down the power, leaving you stuck in the elevator shaft. This is where the game takes a turn. You start getting power-ups without Adam's authorization, and you have to find hidden areas to make your way around. See, in this game, all of the power-ups are given through bosses. Some of the bosses are clones of bosses seen in other games, such as Arachnus, Ceres, and even Ridley.
Because you can't go Metroid game without running into him.
All the bosses are mainly in 2 stages, the main clone and the core X. This core contains the power-up you need. It acts like a phase 2 of sorts, and when you defeat it, you absorb the X to gain the power-up. I feel this adds another layer to immersion. Power-ups are no longer just scattered in random places, and with these, it feels like you achieved them. Of course, it does sometimes feel that way in the other games, but most of the time you just come across it randomly.
Whew! That was a long section. Metro would have yelled at me for going on this long.
Samus eventually stumbles upon a restricted lab containing Metroids, and the SAX is spotted trying to destroy them, but it is overwhelmed and falls to the Metroids, and in its final breath, it activates a self-destruct sequence. Samus escapes, and Adam reveals that they were cloning Metroids for peaceful purposes, and Samus doesn't believe their shit, so she wants to get out of the room, but Adam locks her in the computer room. Being frustrated, Samus calls the computer Adam, and suddenly the computer activates Adam's subconscious and gives her a plan. Samus will change the station's orbit and crash it into SR-388 to get rid of the X for good.
Yeah, apparently they just had Adam's mind on standby. This part makes the littlest bit of sense to me, but we'll just go with it.
So Samus makes her way to the control room and uh-oh, there's an SAX. Yeah, there's more than one SAX. Apparently it can just clone itself on a whim. So you go through that whole spiel and the Core X just runs away. We get a final escape sequence, basically Metroid tradition at this point, but waiting for you at the docking bay is an Omega Metroid. It slaps you up and oh look, it's the SAX you fought. It defends you and then gets slapped up itself. It lets you absorb its Core X, and with your Ice Beam back, you take down the Metroid and escape before time runs out. The end.
So that was Metroid Fusion, a great game, but definitely has its problems, but in my opinion, the positives outweigh the negatives here. I think people give the game too much shit. It's not the best, not the worst, but it's still a good Metroid game. Wait, if the X can clone anything...
Wait, maybe I can trap it in the game. Phew.
Whew. Well, now I know I'm never going to play this game again. Not that I was going to. Well, I can officially say I'm a Metroid fan! Now where's Prime 4, Nintendo?